Classical conditioning, by definition, is a learning process that occurs when two stimuli are repeatedly paired. A process that is first elicited by the second stimulus is eventually elicited by the first stimulus alone. In a basic procedure of classical conditioning, you will have a stimulus that is a neutral or has no effect on its own, and you would pair it with the stimulus that is an unconditional. An unconditioned stimulus is a stimulus that, as a result, in a natural response, although it is not had been learned before. A natural stimulus can pretty much be anything that does not give any kind of response to the specific organism being tested. When the neutral stimulus is mixed with the unconditional stimulus, it turns into a conditional stimulus. When the two occur together, over time they eventually become associated. This means that the original response to the unconditioned stimulus would be the new response to the conditional stimulus, even when it is presented alone. We base our experiment off an experiment created by Ivan Pavlov. His experiments are still referenced today due to his great explanation of classical conditioning. He experimented on a dog, with dog's food, and a bell. He presented the dog with a stimulus, which in this case was a bell. When he rang the bell, the dogs did not react to it because the dogs are not programmed to respond to a bell. Therefore, the bell was a neutral stimulus. The next stimulus was the dog's food and water. The natural response from the dog when presented with food and water was to salivate. This reaction is programmed in the dog, so they did not learn this behavior through experimenting. The food and water can be labeled as the unconditioned stimulus. The dog's response of salivating can be labeled as the unconditioned response. The next step in this experiment was to ring the bell and then present the dog with food and water. The dog then salivated due to the unconditioned stimulus, which was the food and water. The steps then are repeated, and the bell is rung before showing the food and water. The dog immediately reacted to the bell by salivating, even with the absence of food. The dog does this because he is now conditioned. The response of the dog's salivation is now a conditioned response. For our experiment, we tested things on our floor mates. To begin the experiment, we made sure the floor mate had no idea what was going on when we asked them to come over. We told them they were coming over to do homework. When they entered the room, they sat down at the desk, and the experimenter threw a pillow at the floor mate, said, while playing the "that was easy" sound made famous by Staples. The floor mate was naturally confused but didn't do anything. The experimenter repeated this process 5 times throughout the day, each hour. By the last hour, the floor mate was classically conditioned to move out of the way when the "that was easy" was played. In this case, the neutral stimulus is the sound of "that was easy." The pillow is the unconditioned stimulus. The unconditioned response is the flinching while the pillow was thrown at the floor mate. And the conditioned stimulus is the floor mate being classically conditioned to move out of the way once the sound of the "that was easy" is played.
Hi.
So much homework to do, it's insane.
That's alright. You got time.
Yeah. That was easy. Ow! That was easy. Ow! Stop!
Wait. Did you get the answer to the math problem?
No, I'm still doing my paper.
Oh, okay.
That was easy. Why? My phone!
Are you still working on that paper?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 5 to 8 pages.
Damn, that's a long paper.
That was easy.
Oh.
That was easy. I knew it.
You've been doing that paper for a long time.
It's terrible. That was easy.